We just want to take this technology that's really been locked in a lab into a form factor that's easy and convenient and elegant that just about anybody could use. Any kind of movement that you want to practice and commit to muscle memory, that's what we could help with. That's what we could help accelerate.
You're listening to the Optimal Performance Podcast, and I'm your host, Sean McCormick. It's the OPP. I'm a performance coach, a wellness entrepreneur, a blogger, a speaker, a biohacker, and it's my privilege to bring to you the leading experts in the field of performance. So let's dig right in. Hey, what's up, everybody? Before we jump into today's episode of the OPP, it's giveaway time. I'm so stoked to announce the fact that we are giving away a Halo Sport headset. And today's episode is about the Halo Sport, so you're going to learn all about this thing. The Halo Sport is the world's first and only neurostimulator to accelerate improvements in athletic strength and also skills-based training. Now, this headset that I've been using for the last month or so is pretty incredible. This sends low-grade electric currents into your motor cortex. It's used by professional athletes, dancers, musicians, artists, fitness enthusiasts, and just about any and every skill-based sport or activity you can think of. The Halo Sport was developed by a team of neuroscientists and bioengineers as the world's first headset to let you train hard and train smart and refine your skills so that you can master any physical skill or sport. If you're about fine motor cortex, if you're a musician or if you're some sort of performer, this is good for you too. When you put this thing on, it can accelerate your learning, unlock a higher level of training so that you can see faster results. So click on the link in the description to enter now and make sure you share this contest because every time that you share, you're entered in to win again. One of you guys is going to win the Halo Sport and I hope it's you. One more quick thing before we jump into this episode, and that is to hook you guys up. Use the code MAC15, as in Shawnee Mac, as in Mystic Mac, as in me, MAC15 for 15% off your total purchase. We're only doing 20 of these promo codes, so use them quickly. But this is just another way to give you guys as much possible value. I'll take this quick second to tell you a little bit about my favorite supplements that Natural Stacks carries, the Prebiotic Plus. It's a powdery drink that I take every single night before I go to sleep. It helps me sleep and it helps me digest my food. This is resistant starch. It tastes really good. And what you may not know, or you may know, is that resistant starch feeds your gut microbiome. So this is basically giving food to the healthy cooties in your stomach. I take it every single night. I absolutely love it. And I can actually feel like especially when I've had a cheat day and I've eaten kind of poorly during the day, especially then I feel it working. I take this at night and I don't wake up feeling bloated or tired or puffy. It's awesome stuff. It's the Prebiotic Plus. So give this stuff a try and on with the episode. You're listening to the Optimal Performance Podcast. The OPP is brought to you by Natural Stacks, makers of 100% natural and open source supplements designed to help you live optimal. For more information on how to build optimal mental and physical performance into your life, go to naturalstacks.com. And as always, 100% of the time, these episodes are accompanied by a blog post that has all the show notes, transcripts, all the bells and whistles so that you don't have to miss a single solitary detail. And as you already know, we are giving away a Halo Sport, a product that we are going to talk about this whole episode, something that I've tried that I actually really enjoyed, and is the topic of our conversation today. Our guest for today's episode of the OPP is Dr. Daniel Chao, and he is the CEO and co-founder of Halo Neuroscience and the creator of the Halo Sport. Dr. Daniel Chao, Dan, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. Excited to be on.
Yeah, so I like to start most of these in the same way, and I'm always curious. What did you take as far as vitamins today? Are you on any supplements or brain drugs or anything?
Does caffeine, does
Just
that count?
caffeine.
Yeah.
Old school. I like it. You and I have been talking for a little bit before we jumped into this episode. It sounds like it's been a kind of a busy day for you for you today. Tell us a little bit about sort of the origin story, the genesis story of Halo Neuroscience, and how you got involved. Before we jump into talking about specifically the Halo sport.
Yeah. So I'm a neuroscientist. I'm also a medical doctor. And I'm one of these people that nerded out on the brain since the time I was a kid. I studied it in college, went to Stanford for medical school, got a master's in neuroscience at Stanford as well. And while I was in graduate school, I started to learn about ways we can interact with the brain therapeutically. And it really boils down to two general areas. So one is talk therapy, and the other is drugs. Both leave much to be desired. So talk therapy is slow. It doesn't scale. It's very one-to-one. Drug therapy, so we all know about drugs for the brain. They don't work very well. And, the side effects are often about as bad as the disease itself. So it really, begged the question, is there a third way that we can interact with the brain? And I was thinking that maybe that third way is electricity, right? Like the brain is an electrical organ. We've known this for literally 1,000 years. What if we used electricity as medicine to talk to the brain, in its most naturalistic form, in a way that we can modulate neural activity and circuitry, and in a way that could, help humanity. So certainly on the health side, so treating disease, but what if we could build it safe and easy enough to help with the performance side? So otherwise healthy people, and help them perform a little bit better. This concept led to my first company, this company called NeuroPace. We built a medical implant. So think of a pacemaker-like technology, but for the brain, not the heart. So this device is out in clinical practice. It's used to treat epilepsy, which is a disease of seizures. And we were able to show that, by using electric fields interacting with the brain, almost as medicine, we were able to control seizures in our patients far better than any drug could. So, here's Exhibit A for, what might sound like a crazy concept to your listeners, like already in clinical practice, doing amazing work for thousands of people with epilepsy. The idea for Halo actually came out of that work. As heartening as that work was, it was a medical implant, so it's not for everybody. So what if we could take the surgery out of the therapy, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if we could build electronic therapies for the brain in a non-surgical form factor? And so, that's how we founded Halo, is just that one general concept. What we saw happening in scientific labs around the world is that they were playing around with the technology that we're going to talk a lot about, called transcranial direct current stimulation, or, for this conversation, we can abbreviate it as TDCS. So about 3,000 papers, peer-reviewed journal articles that have been published on this topic, showing that you can neuromodulate non-invasively in ways that's to our advantage. So in healthy people, making us better, in sick people, curing disease, or at least treating the disease and giving them some kind of benefit, some relief from their symptoms. That's how we founded the company. It was really on the back of a pretty large base of scientific literature. And, we just want to take this technology that's really been locked in a lab into a form factor that's easy and convenient and elegant that just about anybody could use.
I'm really surprised to hear, I'm encouraged obviously, but it's really surprised to hear that there are 3,000 of those white papers that show the evidence. Can you talk?
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about a couple of those that kind of stand out for you?
Yeah. So beyond white papers, Sean, because white papers suggest that you just put something out there. So these are peer-reviewed journal articles.
Got it. Sorry. Yeah.
No. Just like a small distinction, but I wanted to make that that's out in the medical literature. So, a lot of the early research was neurophysiology. So just looking at model systems to see that if you could help neurons communicate with each other and help them build new circuits, if you could do that, that is a model for accelerated learning. The formation of new circuits is how we learn as human beings. There was really nice evidence with neurophysiology models that demonstrated that. And this goes back to 2004, 2005. A couple of German scientists made these fundamental discoveries that we're all using today as our basis for our work. And then where it really gets interesting, Sean, is when you start connecting changes in neurophysiology to real empirical evidence that we could affect human biology, right? So now we could say, hey, in people who have had a stroke, who can't move their arm anymore because their stroke affected their ability to move, what if we paired physical therapy with neurostimulation? And if you did that, you could show in a very nice controlled, randomized, controlled, clinical trial that the group that got neurostimulation did much better. So they learned how to use their arm or their leg much faster than the group that didn't get neurostimulation but got the same physical therapy.
Yeah.
So it started in a disease model, and then it worked its way up to otherwise healthy people. It's like, wait a second, we can help stroke victims learn movement faster. Like, what about athletes? Right? Like, can we help them learn skill faster? Can we help them learn to be more explosive? Can we help them learn to be stronger? Strength is a skill, explosion is a skill, and of course, little fiddly tasks like playing a violin or putting a golf ball, that's obviously skill. But all of these things, we could help athletes learn that movement faster through neurostimulation.
Through specifically transcranial direct current stimulation.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that flavor of neurostimulation.
When was the first time that you tried it, and what were your results like? I'm just curious because I'm gonna jump out on a limb and say that you're some sort of weekend warrior. Like, are you like a ultra marathoner, or are you a cyclist enthusiast? Like, what's your flavor?
Yeah, cyclist.
Yeah,
I'm proud to say that I ride my bike more than I drive my car.
Yeah, man.
And you add up the miles over the last 10 years of my life, I definitely have ridden more miles than driven. I love this question. So my first time using this device is even before, it was about a year before we founded Halo. So my now co-founder, we were basically playing around in his garage, and we built one of these things, and it's nothing to look at. There's like sponges and cables, and it was kind of hacked together, but it was enough to get started. And what we wanted to do is prove to ourselves that we can replicate some of the findings that we saw in the published literature, right? So, Sean, I have to admit, there's the published literature, there's a lot of truth there, but there's also a lot of garbage. So before, we make this big professional, life move and switching jobs and founding another company, we wanted to make sure that the technology had legs. So, we hacked together one of these devices and started literally just stimulating our own motor cortex. And we were able to replicate in ourselves and then later our friends, some of the early studies that were published, showing that you can get some kind of effect with TDCS and motor learning. So once we were able to do that, we're like, hey, wait a second, there's something real here. Maybe it's time that we thought about quitting our jobs, raising money, and founding a new company around this.
Yeah.
So that's some of my really early experience, but connecting it to cycling. So full disclosure, I'm in my mid 40s. And
Hey, you're okay. You're okay in my book, man.
Okay. All right. So yeah, there's so live in San Francisco. Just on the other side of the Golden Gate Bridge is a local hill called Hawk Hill, and there's a Strava segment. And if you're under 8 minutes, then you're in the top 1%. And it's
Wow.
like everybody knows their Hawk Hill time. Any cyclists around here will know their Hawk Hill time, like it's tattooed on their forearm. And I could never get sub 8. And once I turned 40, I just stopped trying. I'm like, well, it's probably not going to happen. But then, I found this crazy little neurostimulation company, and we find that we're able to, modulate the neural activity in our motor cortex. I'm like, let's give it a go. So I started stimulating my motor cortex. I started being really prescriptive on a trainer and doing intervals. And I've tried this recipe before and it didn't work. So I'm like, okay, let's try it again, but this time with neurostimulation. And I got 745.
Wow.
So and I did it at a time in my life where you wouldn't expect one to set a PR for themselves.
Like drizzling outside on the back of a 2-day cold with a after a night a happy hour kind of deal.
No, I slept well, idle winds. So yeah, there's favorable conditions, but I tried it before in favorable conditions on a good night's sleep, and I couldn't do it.
Huh.
So yeah, it's that was really cool.
Well, I can't tell you how excited I am to know that this is just another case of somebody tinkering around in their garage with their buddy saying, "Hey, I think we can make this thing work. Let's just try." All great startups begin with a couple of dudes tinkering around in a garage somewhere. I love that.
Yeah, it is pretty. I hate to admit, it's pretty stereotypical for the Silicon Valley. Yeah,
right. It totally is. It's great. So I want to take a step back because I want to make it absolutely clear what this device looks like, feels like, how it works. The motor cortex is obviously the key area of the brain that we're talking about for stimulation. And, we're not going to be talking over the head of our listeners. Everybody that's listening is pretty adept and understands, I think, neuroscience in the areas of the brain, at least at a surface level. So, if you would take a step back and explain specifically what stimulating the motor cortex through this TDCS approach, what this actually does to our physical bodies and our ability to perform.
Yeah. Okay. So you asked for a description of the form factor first, so let's hit that. So they look like a set of headphones. What's different about Halo Sport versus a regular set of headphones are these special pieces that we call them primers. So we call the technology neuropriming, like you're priming your neurons. So therefore, we call these special pieces on the underside of the arch of the headset primers. But between, Sean, between us and your listeners, those primers are effectively electrodes. That is where we create an electric field that is strong enough to get through your skull, while gentle enough to interact with, in this case, your motor cortex. So a little bit of luck here in that the motor cortex sits right above our ears. And that is why the headphone form factor is so perfect. So Beats or Bose, whatever, set of headphones, just the arch of those headphones just naturally go over the motor cortex. So, for us, we're kind of agnostic to the form factor. We just want to hit that top part of your head.
Yeah.
And when we're like, so what's this thing going to look like? And it just kept coming back to headphones. So the Halo Sport, it does play music, but the music part is completely separate from the neurostimulation. So you can listen to music. You don't have to listen to music. It's totally up to you. For us, the ear cups is really just to grip your damn head.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the fact that they play music is just because they started to look like headphones, and we're like, why not? Let's throw audio drivers in there. But it's not core to the technology. All right. So the second part of your question, what's going on? So this electric field interacts with your motor cortex. Um, and in 20 minutes, so 20 minutes of neurostimulation will induce a temporary state of what neuroscientists call hyperplasticity, or you can think of it as hyperlearning.
Uh-huh.
And this window of induction is about 60 minutes. So 20 minutes of neurostimulation buys you 60 minutes of hyperlearning. And in this case, with Halo Sport, because the neurostimulation is targeted at the motor cortex, the part of your brain that's specifically in hyperplasticity is the motor cortex. So what we need you to do after your 20-minute session, 20 minutes of neurostimulation, is to feed the motor cortex training repetitions. Okay, so feed the brain movement training repetitions. So if you're a baseball player, we want you to throw or swing. If you're a basketball player, we want you to dribble or shoot. If you're a cyclist, we want you to pedal hard, pedal with great technique. If you're a violinist or a guitarist, we want you to practice, right? Practice your instrument. It's that same kind of movement. Like we have a very broad definition of what an athlete is here at the company. So we think of surgeons as athletes, right? Because they practice movement too.
Sure.
It's any kind of movement that you want to practice and commit to muscle memory. That's what we could help with. That's what we could help accelerate.
Because by sending these sort of low grade electrical signals into the correct part of your brain for that 20 minutes to prime your motor cortex, you're activating that part of your brain so that when you are actually doing the activity for the next hour, however long your training session is, beyond that 20 minutes of having the headphones on, you're in an optimal state of practice. And one thing but when we first spoke before you guys sent me my unit, you said this is a practice tool. This is not a performance tool. Like you're not going to wear this. You're not going to go wear this for jujitsu. You're not going to see athletes wearing these out on the field. However, this is specifically to the practice because your brain is now primed and linked up through increased plasticity for your physical body to perform at a higher level because your motor cortex is stimulated.
Yeah. Sean, that's exactly right. So we see Halo Sport as a training tool, less so a day of performance tool. So you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck in the days and weeks leading up to a competition, and less so the day of competition. So that said, let me give you a more nuanced answer. We do see a lot of our athletes using the device right before competition. And part of the reason is that they're creatures of habit and they don't want to mess with their routine. And that's perfectly fine. Another reason to do that is because you can learn from competition. It's very difficult to mimic the intensity of game day, right? So
that's a great point. That's a really great point. Yeah.
So, basketball is a great example. They play 3 or 4 times a week and they actually don't have that much to practice. They don't have that much time to practice. So, they can almost use the game as a mechanism by which to practice so that they can get better for the next game. And again, you're never going to be able to replicate that kind of game day intensity during practice, no matter what you do. I mean, it's, you can just never get to that level. We're excited to see our athletes using it during both phases, both during training and competition.
How innovative is this? I mean, the two parts to this question. what has come before this that's even close to it, A, and B, how much of a game changer is this, do you think, for overall performance and competition? What's the impact there?
Yeah, so this, I think, at the highest level will one day soon be table stakes. That it would be silly not to use it, and you would be at a competitive disadvantage if you didn't use it. And here's the reason, Sean. I firmly believe that the athlete who trains the most efficiently, the athlete who gets the most out of training, wins. Okay, so you look at Steph Curry, and so I've had the pleasure of meeting Steph. He is not a physical specimen like LeBron James. In fact, he's pretty average looking. He's roughly my height, and I'm like, wow, you're one of the world's best, and I'm nothing. What gives here? And he's legendary for the amount of practice, but like I am 100% sure, I know this for a fact, that there are other players who have practiced more than Steph, and they're not as good as Steph. So what's going on here? What's going on is that Steph's brain is spongier. It soaks up the learnings from practice at an accelerated rate. And so, when we're born, we are born with a certain number of reps in our bank account. And every day we draw from that account. And at some point, it goes to zero. And we're not an elite athlete anymore. So, for us, it's about recognizing that we're human and that there are only a certain amount of reps that we can do, in our prime before we start to fail and injuries start piling up. Like, what can we do to get the most out of every rep? Like, let's treat every rep as a precious commodity, right? Like, we've already been doing things to optimize our body, right? Like, and I see a lot of these things on your website, and that's awesome. And we should be doing that. But what are we doing to optimize perhaps the most critical organ system, the brain?
Sure.
Right? Like, we fuel the body in a way so that it optimally soaks up athletic training. Why aren't we doing anything with the brain? Like, let's prime the brain so that it gets the most out of the athletic training session. So, let's go back to Steph. He's legendary for shooting 100 3-pointers after every practice. Like, why does he do that? He does that not for physical conditioning or anything, that he's doing that purely for the sake of his brain. He's saying, hey, brain, I'm going to do this one more time. Can you please pay attention and learn? Can you please pay attention so that, when I'm competing, when the intensity is the highest, you can just do this automatically.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and at the end of training, when his body is tired, when he's, emotionally drained from a training session where his feet hurt, doing it then, because that's going to set him up for hitting that shot when he's stressed out at the end of the game to win it.
Yeah. So let's try to mimic a real game time situation, and let's throw some load on the body first and then practice, because that's more game like. But yeah, so let's extract more information out of that practice and encode it into neural circuitry, so that when it comes to when it's game 7 and the clock is ticking down and you need to call on this motor program, it's there, right? You've learned it. So yeah, that's, and you look at golf, right? Like, golf is so repetitive. And you see athletes at the highest level breaking down, their back breaks down, their shoulders break down because they're just doing the same swing over and over. This is the bank account that I'm talking about, right? They're just drawing, like, every swing, they're just drawing against this bank account. Like what are they doing to maximize the gains, the neurologic gains from that practice? Like, that's where we come in.
I love that. So Steph's spongy brain is this what makes him an alien.
It's not, well, listen, it's not his height, it's not his weight, it's not his
Sure.
muscular build.
Yeah. Well, and I know, like he floats too. He floats. He uses the sensory deprivation tank. He's quickly becoming sort of the poster boy for flotation therapy, and the way that he talks about it, it's all mental. I mean, of course, it's the magnesium sulfate that reduces swelling and increases circulation, but more than anything else, he's giving his brain a break. He's lowering cortisol. He's decreasing the impact of the default mode network. He's getting that brain break, and he's willing to push the boundaries a little bit because he knows how important your noodle is. That's I don't. It's there's no coincidence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what about what preceded this? Was there any other tech out there? Was there anything else available? And I'm sure that you sort of told us the story of how you came into sort of the private sector with this. But what else? Was there anything else out there before this?
Yeah. So there's scientific equipment. So it looks like it's the size of a toaster oven. It's got dial switches. Yeah, cables, literally sponges for electrodes. So, it takes a neuroscientist to know how to use it. And, the way you put the electrodes on, and especially the motor cortex, it requires some really precision hair parting and this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Again, it's scientific equipment. Not particularly usable for non-neuroscientists, but, we're thankful for that equipment ultimately. Right, because that's what really led to the learnings in the field and enabled entrepreneurs like myself to develop, to turn that into a product.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you my experience with it.
Awesome.
Because I'd love to share. So the plan was for me to train for a jiu-jitsu tournament that I had thought was coming up in mid-April, and life, as it sometimes does, happens. And not only did they change the format to invitational, which they overlooked me. I didn't get invited. They changed it to an invitational format, and then also I got knocked with this seasonal cold that everybody else gets. And so the plan was to practice and train on my back in jiu-jitsu, because I'm it's the weakest part of my game is my guard. And so what I was going to do was to wear this and train on my back and practice opening my hips and practice going through some of the motions of Brazilian jiu-jitsu with the Halo sport, but didn't work out. So what I decided to do, because I didn't want to waste it, and what I've been doing is I've been using it for yoga. And one of my problems is that I lack certain flexibility, especially in my hips and sort of lower trunk. And it's just always been that way. So what I've been doing is the first couple of times I tried it, I used it just in sort of normal kettlebell workouts, focusing very, very specifically on my form. But I've been using it 4 or 5 times just recently with my yoga practice to try to really focus on my form so that I can have the best yoga practice I can possibly have, and increase not only my flexibility but my strength within my flexibility. And I'm aware enough of my own mental states and brainwave states from 600 hours in a float tank and having meditated since I was a kid, and being an elite athlete my entire life. I kind of know when I'm slipping into that zone a little bit. And what I noticed, and what I continue to notice, is that when I put the unit on, when I put the headset on, and I turn it on, I can almost immediately feel just a slight awareness not in the very middle of my brain where you and I both know the motor cortex is, but slightly more forward into the almost my prefrontal cortex, where I can actually notice that I'm dialed in, and it's not like instant flow state, but kind of. It's almost like I've been warming up. It's almost like I've been focused, or like I've been doing visualizations or meditations like before my workout or before my yoga practice. And the primers, as you call them, the electrodes are these sort of medium firmness spines that sit over your ears, if in a rainbow, from the top of your ears over your head to the other ears, and they take a second to kind of get into position, but because it's paired with the app, and you can actually use the app and the app will say, okay, yep, nope, it's not quite in the right position. It's really simple to use, but once it's in, it's in. Once you've got them in the right position, you just sort of like squeeze the headphones down kind of into position. It says, okay, go. And then the timer starts, and then it's like, you better take advantage of this time, buddy, because it's time to train, time to get better. And it's actually really encouraging. And I think for me personally, I love this stuff. As a biohacker and a tinkerer who's used all sorts of different wearables and training devices and stuff like that, like, I know that when I'm using a wearable that it's go time, and there's maybe this sort of like a placebo effect of, don't waste this opportunity, Sean. You're geared up, you're ready to go, you've changed your clothes, you've got your headset on, it's time to boogie. But it really did, and I'd be interested to hear some anecdotal feedback that you've heard about. Do people feel like they get into their zone faster with this? Because that's what it feels like with me.
Yeah. So, Sean, let me preface everything I'm about to say that the data that I have for this is completely anecdotal. So we've never done this in like a sham controlled research trial, which is what we would like to do. But yeah, so I think there's something going on here, and this is why. So a significant number of users, I mean, almost all of them, express to us in an unsolicited way. So we're not going around asking people. So they'll just offer this to us. Basically, it like variations of what you just said. So it's not like a flow state, and it's not like a concentration or a focus thing. It's this feeling that you get of just being more connected to your movements. Something that might take 20 or 30 minutes of working out to feel, you feel almost immediately with neurostimulation.
Yes.
So yeah, there's, we should do that research trial to see if this is actually true. But we've just heard it so many different times, and again, in an unsolicited way, that I feel like there's something here.
What's keeping you guys from the trials? Just too early in the process, too expensive, or?
Oh no. So we've done a lot of research, and we continue to do a lot of research. So we've tested about 2,000 people so far. So yeah, it's just a matter of priorities and slotting it in. There's a lot of different things that we're interested in, and when you've got a system like Halo Sport, there's a temptation, especially if you're a scientist. You're like a kid in a candy store, and you want to do everything. Sure. So yeah, it's just a matter about priorities and slotting that research trial in.
Well, I would be curious to know like what the markers would be for performance, right? Because it's so individual, it's so subjective, and unless it was a longitudinal and you're tracking a darts player for 2 years, or a high level golfer or something like that for years, and you can see their drive improve by 10 yards or something like that. Like it must be a tough thing to measure because there are so many different markers for performance on top of I feel good, right? And at the very highest level, it's a feeling, and you know that, like when you had your personal best on Hawk Mountain, it just felt right. It felt like you were doing things right. It felt like the zone, like, and same thing for me playing soccer or jujitsu or having a great yoga practice. It just feels right. But what do you think eventually will be the sort of measurement markers for an actual measurable increase in performance?
Yeah. So Sean, it's not eventually, it's already happened.
Okay.
So, before we even launched Halo Sport as a product, we, as part of those 2,000 people that we studied, we did the experiments that you just described. And there's a way to do that, and there's a way to do it objectively. So, you're trying to strip away all the subjective, non-scientific findings and really get down to numbers. So, for example, we can take a group of basketball players and just say, hey, very simply, can we get you to jump higher? All right, we're gonna take a group of 20 basketball players, divide them into two. Half of them get real neurostimulation. The other half get what we call sham neurostimulation. So it feels like the real thing, but it doesn't work.
Okay. Interesting.
And so the players, the coaches, the company, nobody knows who's in which group. We treat them equally. They do the exact same training. We do before and after testing. And then we can compare the results from the two different groups. And, in one trial, we showed that the group, so these are college football and basketball players that trained with Halo Sport for 2.5 weeks versus the sham neurostimulation. The group that got Halo Sport improved their vertical leap by 1.9 inches versus almost nothing in the control group.
Huh.
We can test that also on a Kaiser air squat. So this device that uses pressurized air as resistance, but also very nicely reports number of watts of power that your legs produce. And we could see that there. We can get like an extra 250 watts of power from the legs if you train with neurostimulation versus not. Another study that we did is with the United States Olympic ski team. And there we had access to an even fancier piece of equipment. It's called a force plate. It's about 20 or 30,000 bucks, and it's like your digital scale at home times 10,000. It measures force with exquisite sensitivity, and there we could show that we can improve the quality of the movement as measured by how much wobble is in the force curve, and also the total amount of force produced with the jump. If you train with Halo Sport versus the fake neurostimulation waveform. So, what we want to do is, like what you said, Sean, is exactly the danger of doing this kind of research. It can't be subjective. You have to reduce it down to an athletic movement that is measurable. And you have to do it in a way where there's a proper control group. So, we're really proud of our control group in that, like we're basically convincing everybody in the study that they're getting the real thing, which is incredibly motivating, right? Like, hey, we just signed up for a neurostimulation research trial. Whoa, I feel something sizzling on my scalp. I must be getting the real thing. Therefore, I'm going to try harder. So, both groups have that equal benefit, and yet only the group that gets real neurostimulation improves.
Yeah, the real juice. Well, and the interesting part is that you don't really know it's on. Like when it's on, it's. I was sort of expecting sensation and or some sort of pulsing or something like that, and it's just not the case. It's like there's like a really teeny tiny sort of like something's on. I'm wearing a wearable. It's doing like when it first booted up, it was like a just for a quick second, and then it was gone. But it's a high pitched thing, but it's not distracting at all.
What level are you using it?
I was using it at the standard
level 5,
and then I pumped it up to 8 for a minute.
in the beginning, and then now I just do 8 from here on out. I've just been using 8 the last couple of times I've been using it.
Yeah. Okay. That's very typical.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for your listeners, what we're talking about is there's an amplitude setting from 1 to 10, and the user is allowed to basically set their intensity, and it's the entire range is safe and effective. It's really just personal preference, and our general guidance is to use it at the highest level while it's still being comfortable. So, for Sean, that's 8, but for someone else it could be 4. For someone else it could be 10.
Who have you seen? Is there a story that you can tell us a little bit about which athlete or somebody that just absolutely fell in love with it and used it and saw just amazing benefits? Is there a story you could tell us?
There's a cornerback for the Raiders who we've grown really close to. His name is TJ Carey. Really inspirational story. So he had 2 open heart surgeries in high school, and it kept him away from the game that he loved, which is playing football. So he was able to play his senior season, and the scholarships really weren't flowing in as they should because he only had 1 year of football. But he did go somewhere. It was Ohio University, and he did well there. So small school, not known for pumping out NFL caliber players. And he was a very late round draft pick, which is for a football player a dangerous place to be, because the GM's career is not riding on you being successful. So if you don't perform, it's pretty easy for the team to drop you. Nobody really loses face for that draft pick. But TJ is a starter now. He's the starting quarterback. There's only there's 30 NFL teams or thereabouts, and there's 2 quarterbacks per team. So there's 60 starting quarterbacks. So TJ is one of them. One of the most amazing things about TJ is these football players will talk about their peak of fitness, and it'll always go back to the day that they were at the combine, which just happened. And he was able to get back to his combine numbers. So 42-inch vertical leap and, like a 4.3 on the 40, which, if for your listeners that follow football, like these are incredible numbers.
Yeah. Those are crazy numbers.
Just for fun, we brought him into our office, and he, in dress shoes, and in dress pants, he jumped 39 and a half. Just for fun.
What a stud.
Yeah. So, he never expected to get back to those numbers. We helped him get back there, and, he's just been playing better than ever. And, just like to be a part of the story has been amazing. I got one more story for you, Sean. Is that okay?
Absolutely. Please do.
Yeah. So, very different from football, maybe polar opposite, is chamber music. So there's an Austrian string quartet led by their lead violinist named Daniel Chao. So Daniel buys a Halo Sport, ship it to him in Austria, and he's basically rooting against us from day one. He plans on trying it and then returning it to us. But it worked for him. And then he passes it on to second violin, and it worked for her. And then he passes it on to viola, and it worked for him. And he passes it on to his cellist, and it worked for him. So, so we proved it one by one to all 4 of these folks in the quartet. And again, they're based in Vienna, Austria. So they come to the San Francisco Bay Area to play a couple of concerts, and they just show up unannounced at our office. And so, we answer the door, and it's like, you have an appointment with someone? What's the deal? And they're like, no, we're just users and we want to talk to you. So they come in, and
are you panicking at that point? Like,
they looked nice enough.
They're not pissed.
And they didn't look pissed.
Nice.
And so we start talking, and they tell us a story, and it's just amazing. Like we can't have too many of these stories. It's just like fantastic to hear. And they're like, "Listen, if you're around on Thursday, can we come back and play a private concert for you guys?"
Oh, that's cool.
And we're like, "Absolutely. We'll order pizza. Let's hang out." So yeah, so they came back and they just played so beautifully. And it's stories like this with the Alner Quartet, stories like the work that we did with TJ Carey, for us to play even a small role in their success is just so incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
that's awesome.
to see like the fantastic things that TJ can do on the field, all the way down or across to what the Alner Quartet can do in producing this amazing music, and everything in between, all our amazing users in between. Like we're as a company just inspired by our users every day.
Yeah, that must be a nice feedback loop. Like when people, you put together a product that you believe in, you send it out there, you hope people love it, and then you hear like, "Hey, we love it so much, we want to play a private concert for you."
Yeah,
That's cool.
and
yeah,
yeah, Sean, and I just like, especially with our users right now, it's like these are the pioneers. I mean, we just built the product. The people that use it are really the pioneers in what we see as the next generation of human performance.
yeah,
They're on this journey with us.
yeah.
Right? So yeah, there's like it's really this amazing community that's formed around this piece of hardware that's a brain stimulator, and it might. I mean, we're thankful for the progress that we've made, but like if you can imagine what it was like on day one. Right. It's like, well, okay, we're selling brain stimulators to athletes. You ready for this? All right, let's start talking to people.
Yeah, yeah. Is this your main project? Because I know that you've been involved in a lot of other successful projects also. Like, is this your 9 to 5 now?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So there's it's a lot more than 9 to 5, as you can imagine. But
yeah, I bet.
but yeah, this is it. It's definitely keeping me busy.
What do you foresee? What do you foresee as a potential problem with this
Mm.
going forward? Like where's this going to get hiccups?
Yeah, so a lot of people ask us about safety, and they should.
Yeah,
And from our perspective, any discussion around safety should really be a discussion around data. So, for us, we've been talking about those 2,000 people that we studied in our research trials, and we collect efficacy data, but and we've been talking about that, but we also collect safety data, which is really important to help us prove out the safety profile. And yeah, in our users, in our hands, with our equipment, everything's pointing towards a very safe product. So now we have an installed base of many thousands of devices, and we're collecting usage data from all of our users. And again, it's just like devices out in the field where we have over 100,000 data points of successful neurostimulation sessions. Safety's really just been proving out more and more. And then another place to look is the published literature. So we've been talking about these 3,000 papers. Well, those 3,000 papers cover over 100,000 subjects. Many of those subjects have been using the neurostimulation technology for years on end. And with other people's equipment, in other people's labs, it's the safety profile just keeps reinforcing itself in that we have a safe product here.
that must feel good.
Yeah. Well, and I think it should be expected. Like taking a page out of my last company, where it's a medical implant, so it's a very different kind of neurostimulation, far more severe, and it's also on 24/7.
Yeah, right.
Like in this case, it's non-invasive and it's only 20 minutes a day, max. So far different levels of exposure. And, if you look at the data from my last company, we have 10-year safety data of people who have been implanted for 10 years. And, none of these, there's I guess when you're talking about the brain and electricity, there's a lot of, let's call them hypothetical, theoretical side effects. Am I going to go crazy? Am I going to be depressed? And will it affect my sleep? Will I get brain cancer? Right? Like none of those things have borne out in the data.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all theoretical. I think when we get more experience and this becomes more common, we will look back to this time as thinking throwing drugs at the brain as being far more reckless than what we're doing with neurostimulation.
Sure.
Right. I would love to just kind of turn that conversation. It's like, hey, listen, when you take a drug, you're blasting your whole body unnecessarily. You're blasting your whole brain unnecessarily. You only need to hit a certain part of your brain for the certain part of the time. Like, why is it all over the place, always on? Right. With neurostimulation, because it's a physical device, we can place the electrodes where we want it and not where we don't want it. And because it's a physical device, we can turn it on and off. We can turn it on when we need it. We can turn it off when we don't need it. So I think we will see this modality in our interface with the brain. Like, I think we will see it tilt more towards electronic therapies and away from drug therapies.
How does this compare to neurofeedback?
Yeah, so neurofeedback is the exact opposite. So neurofeedback is sensing from the brain, and playing that data back to the individual and encouraging this individual to change their behavior. So we're not sensing from the brain. We're actually delivering energy to the brain.
Got it. There is no feedback. There is no feedback. It's one way traffic into the motor cortex.
That's right. Yeah, one way going in versus one way going out in neurofeedback.
Got it. Interesting. Do you have any experience with neurofeedback?
Not really. My co-founder has more experience on the EEG side.
Yeah.
But yeah, less so me.
Do you think that this is for everybody?
I think it's for serious athletes. I think it's for, so you can be an existing serious athlete, or you can be an aspiring serious athlete. Like maybe you were an athlete in high school and college, and life got in the way, and now it's time to get back at it. I think it could be for those folks. It could be for folks that have always wanted to play a musical instrument, and now at this point in their life, they want to pick it up. Maybe they didn't have the means or the time before, and now they do. They've earned that right.
Yeah.
And yet they don't even start because they're just like, wow, this 10,000 hour rule is going to take me forever to get good. So, I just would love to, inspire your listeners to think like, what if it were the 2,000 hour rule instead of 10,000 hours? Like, what would you do today? Where we, we're known as a sports performance company or a movement company, but that's not who we are. We're a human performance company. So you could expect additional products from us that target different brain areas that get at different neurologic functions that will help us learn faster.
Yeah.
So, let's just have fun. Let's just have fun. And, I'm not going to spill company secrets here, but let's have some fun. Like, what if you, Sean, what if you want to learn to speak Chinese? But today you wouldn't even, you're just like, listen, it's going to take way too long. By the time I'm good, I'm about to die. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Sure.
But like, what if you paired neurostimulation of your language cortex with your Berlitz or your Duolingo app on your phone?
Yeah.
And I could show you that you can learn twice as fast or 3 times as fast.
Yeah,
There might be some hope for you, right? You're like,
for
hey,
sure.
wait a second. Now I'm motivated because, what we want to do is to help humanity jump on this virtuous cycle of practice yielding success, yielding more positive motivation, yielding more practice into more success, into motivation, more practice. So this is this virtuous cycle.
Right.
What we don't want is the death spiral where you practice, 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 and you get none of the reward. And so therefore you stop. And you never give yourself a chance to bring, something new into your life that you want.
Well, that's an optimistic way to look at the world, man. I love that. I mean, that's what at the heart of what we're trying to do here with this podcast, with all natural supplements that we create that are open source and non-proprietary that help people get better. And we are attacking the performance angle from a nutritional standpoint with nutrition, but if somebody knew that they could wear a headset that wasn't uncomfortable, and that would help them walk, that would help them acquire language, that would help them ease social anxiety, or help them get outside or experience. And that's it's not getting into like VR or AI or AR or anything like that, but that's like if you need a little bit of something to help stimulate parts of the brain that will help you live a better life, like why wouldn't you try it? Why wouldn't
Yeah.
you? Like
Yeah.
what is there to lose?
I think very little.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But it's, we're preaching to the choir here.
Sure.
Yourself, your listeners, you guys, we are, just naturally inquisitive, and we think about these things, and we hunger for ways to, help ourselves, with the way that we perform physically, mentally. We are not the majority.
Yeah.
So yeah, it the way I see, Sean, and the community that you've built around your podcast, these are the folks that like we really want to embrace and welcome into our community. And in time, the rest of the world will see the results that we get, and inspire another community of people to pick it up.
Yeah. Well, somebody listening right now is going to get their hands on one of these because you guys are nice enough to allow us to give one away.
Awesome.
We're in the middle of the giveaway now, and there's promos running, and of course, everybody, don't worry, we'll give you explicit directions by now on how to enter to win. But well, give me a little before we wrap this thing up. What can you tell me, given what you've heard about sort of, I didn't get picked for the jiu-jitsu tournament. I don't really have I don't really have a performance or that I'm working toward. Am I using this right? Wearing it for my yoga practice? Like, how can I make the most out of the time that I have with this puppy?
Yeah, so you can definitely use it for yoga. I mean, yoga is a lot about core strength and balance, and symmetry, and you can use neurostimulation to improve all of those things. That's a learned movement, so absolutely. And then I think one other thing that people don't realize is that flexibility, range of motion, is actually probably more neurologic than it is structural. So, when you're stretching, it's not like you're lengthening your tendon. I mean, if anybody has done a cadaver dissection, it takes a lot of pulling to lengthen a tendon. I mean, that thing is like a piece of denim. Like, it's not going anywhere. What you are doing is you're training your nervous system to give a little bit more, to relax a little bit more, so that you can lengthen the muscle. So yeah, there's actually a really nice study came out of Sweden that looked at this, and they're basically They just published a really nice paper reinforcing this idea that of the neurologic basis to flexibility.
Yes. I think that's fascinating. It's not that you can't flex farther. It's that you're up inside your head about about how it is that you're doing this. It's in your brain telling you, "Oh no, don't go that far," or we're not cut out for this, or we can't do that. Like that. I think that's because we've all had moments, whether it's after a sauna or when we're not paying attention, where we bend over and pick something up, and then we find that we're actually a little bit more flexible than we thought we were. To know and to think about that, because that's one thing that you and I talked about before I got my hands on one and was starting using it. You were saying that this might actually help my flexibility, and I just think that's fascinating.
Yeah, we actually got that result with the baseball team. We did a bunch of testing and we got the result that we were expecting, but then we were kind of scratching our heads like, what is going on with range of motion? And we all like went to the literature and just like kind of refreshed our memories. Is like, wait a second, yeah, the brain has a role in relaxing our muscles, and we can teach it by practicing stretching to give us more range of motion. And you can almost feel it, like there's this push and pull, like you have a stressful day and you kind of tense up, right? And you got to undo that with some stretching. So most of us here in your community, we've got day jobs and they're not a walk in the park. So we want to remain flexible, but our day job kind of forces us the other direction, which is why we have to keep at it.
Yeah. Are you good about stretching? Do you?
Yeah, for sure. Every night.
When you get,
every night. Yeah.
What, before you, after dinner, before bed, kind of a thing?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
And do you still use the Halo Sport? Do you train with it?
Yeah, I do. So I use Halo Sport, but I'm also beta testing our second product.
Cool.
You got to eat your own dog food, right?
Yeah, right. For sure. Yeah, right. Do you use it like with a Peloton at home, or do you just some sort of stationary bike?
No, I'll wear it as I'm running out the door, and take it off, put on my bike helmet, and get after it.
Nice.
Yeah, sure. The part of that time and part of this period of hyperplasticity is eaten up by my warm up, but there's still enough time after that where I can get some good training in.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
It's fascinating stuff. It's fascinating stuff, and I think that when we look forward 10 years, we still know nothing. I mean, you're a neuroscientist. I'm not, but we just really don't know anything about the brain yet, do we? We're just so far away from knowing what we need to know.
Yeah. So Sean, I'm with you 100% there, but I also want to take the glass half full approach.
Uh-huh.
In that we do know a lot. And, if you look at what's happened over the last 20 years in this explosion in technology development, especially around like MRI and CT scanning, and how we're able to use that as a research tool to understand like how the brain is connected, we should use that to our advantage. There's still a lot we don't know, but to ignore all of that and to not use it to our advantage would also be, I mean, to me, that would be an opportunity missed.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Let's activate on what we know, and let's
keep forging onward. But yeah, let's do something.
Yeah, let's do something. Let's do something, especially if it's, we know that it's safe. The data shows it's safe. It's fine to wear. It's not uncomfortable to wear. And wait, there's more. There's other parts of the brain. There's other things that you can do. I think it's super awesome. It's really exciting to me, man. And I'm gonna try to milk this as long as I can and hold on to my my loner version for as long as I can. But somebody listening right now is going to get one of these, and I'll just tell you, whoever you are that wins this thing, Like, don't waste it. Go use it. Go be awesome. Whatever it is that turns you on, whatever it is that you're into, whether it's cycling or marathons or CrossFit or whatever, like go push yourself. Go perform optimally.
Yes, please. And please tag us on Instagram or tweet at us. Like, all of us at the company, we eat that stuff up. And
Awesome.
yeah, we are going to be virtually high-fiving you from San Francisco, where we're all based.
Nice. Well, I'm gonna do it too because I haven't really been been posting online with it, but I'm gonna start doing it now. You're gonna regret that because now you're gonna see me in my undies, doing my doing my movements, wearing my Halo sport.
All right, at least you got your undies on.
Yeah, right. Well, Dan, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate the time. What's the best way for people to find you? What's the most important way that people can get in contact?
Yeah, website's great, haloneuro.com. Instagram and Twitter, you guys could just do the search, but it's at Halo Neuroscience or at Halo Neuro, one of those two on Instagram or Twitter. And yeah, we would love your follows. And if you want to sign up for our email list, you can be the first to get company news that way. And I look forward to keeping in touch with all of you guys.
Awesome. Okay, everybody, that does it for this episode of the OPP. See you guys later.